So make sure.
It is 5:30 PM. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Today is not June 12th, it's June 15th. We have the PUB board meeting at 5:30 PM at the PUB Annex Building. So the meeting has been called to order. Do we have a confirmation on the quorum?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, let's move with our pledge of allegiance, please, for the U.S. flag and for our Texas flag. Pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States
of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. One say that God, indivisible.
This time we'll recognize a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Next item, we have any public comments?
No public comments.
No public comments. We'll move to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, before the board takes any action, I would advise, I guess, to take item number two out. This was the request to authorize Mr. Rondon to travel to APPA. He has notified us that he won't be attending, so.
Okay, item number 2. Removed on the consent.
Sir.
We need to take action on that, Margaret? We're just removing it? Withdrawn, okay.
I'll make a motion to approve item 1 and 3 through 9 on the consent agenda, item number 8. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Motion passes. Consent agenda item. We'll now move to items for individual consideration, starting with the general manager report. I think we have 10 items there.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I would like to request that we pull an item out of order. If we can please start with the share scholarship recipients, Jay, so that we don't have the families having to wait too long.
Absolutely. Not a problem.
Miguel Collins?
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Miguel Collis, Digital Information Platforms Manager with the Brownsville Public Utilities Board. And I'm here today to announce the annual recipients for our annual scholarship. Just to give you a little bit of background, BPUB's annual Project Share Scholarship Program aims to support qualified high school graduates who reside with services with PUB households. And BPUB allocates funds annually to award $1,000 worth of scholarships to deserving students in the Brownsville area. Obviously, we'd like to help them achieve their academic goals. And so as I call up your names, the recipients will come up. We'll follow up with a photo if you all want to come up and take a photo with the recipient. So first up, we've got Jada Ashford from Los Fresnos High School. Miss Angela Gomez Cepeda from Lopez High School. Miss Ashley Lumbreras from Rivera High School. Elena Martinez from Veterans Memorial. Carme Leja from Simon Rivera High School. Dylan Lozano from James Pace Early College High School. Giovanna Mata from Hannah High School. Alessandra Vasquez from Brownsville Early College High School. Mr. Carlos Montes from Hannah High School. Mireya Rodriguez from Rivera High School. And Derek Brown from Veterans Memorial. So we'd like to congratulate the recipients for this year. Thank you very much. So now I'll ask the members of the board who want to take a picture with the students to come up, and executive management as well. Let's have a little second. We got it. Here we go. Who graduated from Pace? I did Pace too.
All right.
Where are you? Yeah, just say it.
Everybody.
Thank you to all of the recipients, and thank you for the board for giving us the opportunity to present tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for presenting these outstanding students. It's always a pleasure to recognize such talent in our community. And of course, we wish them nothing but great success in their endeavors and their future endeavors. And you can see the University of Texas and Texas
I'd
A&M.
just like to interrupt and say, I'd like to interrupt and say, go Owls.
It's all right. The University of Colorado Award. I talked to a young lady. I spent a lot of time visiting my kids there and paying the tuition. But we wish them all well, and thank you for this great presentation.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
All right.
Thanks.
All right, Mr. Chair, the next item we have the book copy in your packet. The items highlighted in blue the monthly scheduled meetings for SRWA, BPB, and PopCap. They're upcoming. Other events are highlighted in green from June 19th through the 21st. We have the APPA National Conference in Seattle, Washington. And on July 24th to 26th is the TPPA annual meeting in San Antonio, Texas. Moving on to the items highlighted in red are BPB holidays that are being observed, and the offices will be closed. We have June 19th next Monday, Emancipation Day, and then July 3rd and 4th to be celebrated as 4th of July. Any questions?
Question for the board?
No? Okay, we'll move on. Next item, we have the financial report by Mr. Rangel.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is George Rangel, and I am the finance manager here at PUB. I'm going to be presenting the financial performance report as of April 30th, 2023. So I'm going to be concentrating on the far right column labeled fiscal year 2023 year to date. And I'm going to go ahead and start with line item right below the line item number 5, our total operating revenues. We have $126,893,680. To that, we're going to go ahead and subtract out our total operating expenses of $105,811,544, giving us an operating income of $21,082,136. Moving down to below line item number 18, I'm going to subtract out our non-operating expenses of $10,308,351. Gives us a income before capital contributions of $10,173,185. We add in capital contributions of $3,364,668. Gives us a change in net position, $14,138,453. We add that to the net position at the beginning of the year of $445,310,943. Gives us net position for the period of $459,449,396. Moving on to the next page as our flow of funds. I'm going to go ahead and start off on line number 20. As you can see, we generated sufficient revenues to cover our transfers out, which include our operating sub-fuel account, fuel adjustment of $2,136,244. The improvement fund, CIP funding of $5,196,575. And our improvement fund, Resaca CIP funding of $209,876, leaving us with an improvement fund surplus of $855,807. Then on our last page, we just want to highlight that these financials are as of April. So on line item number 9, the improvement fund, you still see there that the money from the Tenasca Equity Fund, it was sitting in our bank account at that point in time. As we generate our financials going forward, we will see the decrease in the $29 million and the interest that was sent out to the customers in the form of either refunds or checks. Any question on this report?
Questions? No.
Okay, so Mr. Rangel does have the next 3 items. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to go on with the engineering fees that was included as part of your packet. For fiscal year 2023, the approved budget for engineering fees was $3,162,214. Year-to-date expenses came in at $1,783,960. $1,378,253. And then lastly, I'm going to go ahead and go over the unbilled services for the CIAC billed over to the city. And when you look towards the middle of the report, you will see that we do have an open balance right now of $18,108.73 through the month of April. And then towards the bottom of that report, we do show a history going back 5 years for the city cash transfer network usage. And so that's there at the bottom of the page. Departments have been using to request O&M expenses for the next coming year, as well as their project requests, computer, furniture, equipment, vehicles, and that sort of stuff. The timetable as well does provide deadlines for the departments of when these items are going to be due to the finance staff so that we can continue on with the budget process. There's also dates in there where we will be meeting with the directors, executive team, and even providing updates to the finance committee, and also having one-on-one briefings with everybody on the board to kind of discuss our progress as we go through the process. All of this will culminate where we plan on presenting the budget and hopefully getting that approved before October 1, fiscal year 24 start date. I'm not sure if anybody has any questions or.
Question from you, the board members?
Quick question.
Sure.
How are we doing on the capital improvement fund?
On the, as far as the percentage,
Yeah, the acquisition of just everything we need to run the utility.
that's,
Like how are we doing percentage of spend down right?
I think the last time we ran the report for the month of May, I believe we went up to 21%, based on the 92%, 92 million that was approved versus what was spent. So we're at about a 21%. I think there was a bump, maybe like 4 or 5% from the month that we presented last, from the month that we presented last.
Last, okay. Just, again, anything we can do to make sure that any capital equipment we can get in the door to start, to continue making improvements would be.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Thank you all.
All right, Mr. Chair, next up is the water and wastewater repairs report by Mr. Estrada.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Jaime Estrada. I'm the Director of Water Wastewater Operations. Just want to give you a quick update on the recent utility repairs we've been experiencing due to the BTX citywide fiber project. So all this is underground. So we are experiencing quite a few utility strikes. But I want to let you know, when we do experience the utility strike, we do bring in risk management. They'll come out and make an assessment. We do have a way of tracking the costs. We do track it through service orders and the activity that we've assigned to the project. Once we're done with the repairs, we will take all that cost, get back to risk management. Risk management will, after they're done the assessment, they'll bill the party at fault. A lot of times it's the contractor. Sometimes it's the utility locate contractor. And sometimes we have to bear that cost because our utility plans may not show the utility exactly where. I'm going to introduce Armando Garcia. He's our division manager for the area. He's at the forefront. He's the one that receives all the calls. It's his group that goes out there and takes care of these issues. She's going to go over there's quite a few. I've asked him just to keep it short, just to tell you what the size of the line was and how many customers were affected through that outage. Then we'll answer any questions y'all may have at the end or during the presentation.
Good evening, board members. My name is Armando Garcia. I'm the division manager of the water and wastewater distribution and maintenance. I'll be going over some of these utility damages that we've encountered since March 28th was the first one that we encountered. So the first one was a 6-inch PVC interrupted service to Peter Piper Pizza for 8 hours. They did shut down. You can see the cost and the gallons that were accumulated to this repair. 799,200 gallons with a cost of $6,073.29. It also asphalt repair that was having to do, had to be done to this repair. A lot of them have asphalt and concrete that go with the repairs. The next one we had was in April the 1st. It was a 2-inch copper line that interrupted service to a business plaza at 1740 Boca Chica Boulevard for 3 hours, and 15,000 gallons of water was lost. Total cost was $1,686 for 6 cents. Also, the asphalt on that one was $8,239.65. This is one that the contractor BTX does not have in the reports. So, assuming that we have been contractors working for Sprint, Spectrum, installing electrical fiber lines. On April 3rd, 805 West Price Road, a 2-inch line was damaged, affecting the business plaza for 4 hours. 50,000 gallons of water was lost. This particular one, the contractor took it upon himself to make the repair.
Let me just stop you there for a minute. We've been through this item and we see the damage and the incidents and that have occurred. One of the questions that they have or that I have is there's an awful amount of loss of water, a lot of damages, a lot of cost. How is that, how's the collaboration going with the subcontractor, with the city, with PUB? Are we working through that?
We actually had a meeting this week with the city officials and contractor. We provided them with phone numbers of all our supervisors and foremen. This was also provided to them when they first started doing the work. But if they ever could not locate the line, to give us a call, and we would go out and assist. And it wasn't being done.
And I think some of my concerns and some of the calls I'm receiving from citizens in the community is they just see this happening so frequently. And they're asking who's monitoring, supervising, who's accountable. And obviously they're leaving a trail,
Exactly.
but
Yes, sir.
it's happening so frequently, I guess. When we have a well thought out plan, we have professionals that are looking at this, or should have been looking at this. How's this happening so frequent? It looks like they're,
They have, sorry to interrupt, they have approximately 6 contractors doing work for them, the BTX, and they're all spread out throughout the city of Brownsville. Adjacent to our line, crossing our lines, and sometimes they don't locate the utility line and they continue to burn, and that's where the problems lie.
Do, oh, sorry, do we know if any of these 6 contractors, is it uniformly distributed, the problems uniformly distributed across all 6, or is there, okay,
Each one, so you'll see
I think-
there's different contractors.
Yeah, I think that's something we can figure out pretty easily. And
Yes.
as an engineer, I'm deeply concerned that how long is this project supposed to be going on for? I mean, how long are we going to be burying BTX lines?
Yeah, don't have that timeline, but we'll get with the city. Like, we are trying to meet more with the city, so they've
Yeah.
got my number as well, so
I mean, because it can only be one of, I mean, I know, I'm preaching to the choir here. I mean, I know you all know the issue. It's either bad data or they're not paying attention to the data, or a combination of the two. And if it's a combination of the two, we need to really get to work to it, because this is not sustainable. I mean, we can't afford to be, I mean, how many have we had these in the last 2 months? 14? Okay, so that's 7 or 8. That's a couple a week at least. If this goes on for 6 months, I mean, we're talking about another 50 strikes. Look, I'm concerned about the cost, and they're going to pay, but my biggest concern is the disruption to our customers. And at what point do we get to at what point do we stop work, or at least request that they stop work until we get to the root of the problem, whether that be, and I'm not saying it's not partly our fault, and saying, hey, maybe there's some bad data, but I'm not also saying it is. We just need to investigate this to simply, and no offense, to simply report what has happened is necessary. But we really need to figure out just what the heck's going on, because the public, and I think the board, is rightly frustrated with, why is this happening? I mean, it seems like that if we do have it, I heard one story, it's anecdotal, but I heard one story that they were warned that the line was there. They were told to do borings. They refused to do borings. They went through and cut the darn thing right straight through. If that's what the customer we're doing business with, then we need to stop them. I don't understand why we're continuing.
yeah, some situations are, I don't want to call them special, but in that particular case, that line was 10 feet deep and their bore was 10 feet deep.
Yeah.
So they're trying to miss it. It just happened that we hit at that.
I
at that-
understand,
yeah.
listen, I understand the mistakes are gonna happen.
Sure.
And if this is normal when you're cutting through, I mean, it's strange.
I think we need to work a little bit closer with the city so we can get more of our staff out there as well before they're doing the bore, so we can make sure that they've spotted the utility correctly.
Yeah.
I think that we just don't have the manpower. We need to figure out how to do that. So we'll meet with the city again and we'll see how we can maybe minimize these damages. We're gonna have damages anyway.
Sure.
It's all underground, but we need to figure out a way to minimize them.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
And improving, like you said, already working on improving the after the fact when a strike does happen. We're responding as quickly as possible.
Mhm.
And I'm sure we're gonna get plenty of practice at that. If we haven't already.
Jimmy, perhaps you can obtain some information for this board as to the timeline on this project. I'm sure there's a start date and a beginning date that's estimated somewhere.
I know we had it in previous meetings. I just can't recall what it was.
Yeah, we'll do it. I'll get it from the city. I know that they started at the most congested areas, so that's why hopefully they'll stop, because I think they're trying to get out from the most congested areas. That's where they started, so hoping it gets better.
I'm sorry, what areas?
The most congested areas.
Congested areas. Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's which is all downtown area, things of that nature. So
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
working their way out, so I'm hoping that it gets a little bit better.
Did we inspect the contractor's repair on the line? Where they took it upon themselves to fix the line?
They've only repaired one, and it was a 2-inch service line. All the other repairs are done by PUB.
Okay, but that 2-inch service line, was it repaired
Yes, sir.
to our standards?
Yes, sir.
One other question. Are all of these water lines, water service lines?
No, we had the large 24-inch force main on Morrison. That was, we didn't interrupt service to customers, but we had the road closed for 4 days. And the only reason we didn't interrupt service is because the coordinating of the shutting down lift stations and it was a lot of coordinating, the department assisting with that.
Major one, so that did include a whole lot of, about 24 lift stations, so
Yeah.
it was like a 24/7, so I've got texts from 5, 3, 4 in the morning, we're lowering the sewer and things, and trying to get ready for it. So
You know, if we, so I know we have limited crews, but if we could definitely identify maybe the most critical infrastructure. Yeah, that, oh my goodness, yeah, they hit this, we have the same problem.
But it's funny you mentioned that, so and the call, we told them about a 30-inch water line. That evening, they struck it, they barely scraped it, but they broke another line that was attached to it. You hit that 30-inch, we shut down a water plant. That's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've been emphasizing on the big major lines, but we'll make sure we get
And if-
any closer with them.
If anything else, tie up art outside the line with chains so that nobody can drill until they figured it out kind of thing. But I think especially near critical infrastructure like that, we should, bare our teeth a little bit more.
Yeah, and I'll add that on that 24-inch force main, our foreman, one of our most experienced foremen was out there telling them exactly where it was at. They still hit it. And that same foreman went out to the 30-inch line and told them where it was at, and they also hit it.
We don't want to diminish this report and presentation because we know it's important. There's a lot of discussion on it right now. We are hoping, we're asking that the collaboration with the city is really done quickly to bring everyone together.
Yeah, I'll touch base with them first thing tomorrow morning. I want to give them a call and I'm going to express the concerns of the board and our concerns as well. Because his staff's also
Right,
ties them up, yeah.
right.
I think about the money that's being spent by the contractors. Someone's paying for that, to absorb that cost somewhere.
And the impact of business.
The impact
Impact
of
of
that is
business.
the loss of the water.
And also our utilities, when they get damaged and we make a repair, nevertheless, it's a repair. And it's not the line's not the same as it was.
That is a good point.
And can you, we hit water, wastewater and fire lines, are there any health or safety risks that would be associated with any of these?
Fire lines, business is shut down. For instance, on Peter Piper Pizza, they had to shut down for 10 hours.
Mayor,
What about contamination on the water lines?
They have backflow systems on the check valves, also on the fire lines. So it's an automatic break, so it can't get contaminated. You know,
I'd like to ask the mayor to make a comment on it.
Yeah, I'd like to get a summary of these incidents, just in Excel. I'll get the city manager to also make sure that, we'll address this.
The engineering, one other thing, the engineering contract manager or the engineering firm that's in charge of managing the 6 different firms, is there not one?
I believe they're all subcontractors
They're also,
with
but is there a
BTX.
firm managing them?
BTX is the main contractor.
BTX is the manager
Yeah.
for them.
Yeah.
They didn't hire anybody else for that.
No,
Okay.
nobody else. From what I understood in that call, he's the guy.
Okay.
So I'll touch base with him. I got his number, so.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, we appreciate this presentation. It's an important one and we'll be waiting for some more information. Thank you.
Also, please do keep us updated on future breaks. We'll probably repeat the same thing again, but that doesn't mean we don't want to know.
I think we need to prepare, if we don't see a reduction in these things, that we need to, like you said, verify people a little bit more and see what, I'm not sure we have any remedy at our disposal or any threat at our disposal. But
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is a standing item in future
Great.
reports, so. So next up, we have the drought update and the Resaca restoration update by Mr. Mariscal.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the board. Quick update, drought update, and followed by the cycle restoration program update. Thank you. Rene Mariscal, Water Resource Manager. We did make some minor revisions to what you're going to see up here versus what you have. And most of that is due to updates, updated information, or expanding on what you have. And I'll point that out as we move along. So drought update, reservoir levels are at 31.1%. That's good news, and you'll see why. The month of April, the latter part of April and most of May, we received some good rain, and that actually allowed us to catch up to the state we were at last year at this time. Notice that the red there, 2022, we dropped below that stage 2. You'll see that stage 2 at 25%, so we had to implement that stage 2. Right now, we're at 31.1%. Obviously, this is weather dependent, so we'll see what trend we follow. We're hoping we follow that same trend as 2021 and keep us above that stage 2 level. So obviously, it's warming up. Now, this is something that we revised compared to what your package there. This was just released today. That's we provided that update. And obviously, what that's looking is climate patterns, and this is for the next 3 months. According to this, it's keeping us out of drought, but we'll see what the reservoir levels do for our community. That's a quick update on the drought. Any questions?
Rain.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the Resaca Restoration Program update. I know we touch on this regularly, but before I move on, keep in mind that there's 2 ongoing projects. We'll mention Restore, and that's within the town Resaca system. And then there's also some work underway, the second project with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers down on Resaca de la Guerra, okay? These are the restoration measures that we'll employ for both projects. Depending on the project, we'll focus more on, for example, incorporating invasive plant species management or native vegetation more for the core, for example, core project, whereas the Restore project is focused a little more on flood damage reduction. But overall, these are the measures that we throughout the program. Again, some focus more on flood damage reduction and others on ecosystem restoration.
And just, can I get you to talk about the money behind Restore and the money behind the ecosystem restoration?
Absolutely. I'll touch on that. But just in a nutshell, while we move forward on that, the Restore Fund, the Restore project is grant awarded. This is $4.6 million that we received for Restore. And let me clarify that it's a reimbursement program. $4.6 million, and I'll touch on that here in a minute. Whereas with the core project, as we go along through the recommended, and you'll see $311 million now for improvements, that's at a 65-35% share. So it's not like an award, that's an agreement where we agree to move forward, sharing at 65%. And I'll touch on that here in a minute. So first, I'm going to focus on the core project, the overall core project. This is from the feasibility study that was completed in 2018. And it's essentially what's called the National Ecosystem Restoration Plan. And you'll notice here that it's focused on Resaca de la Guerra and Resaca del Rancho Viejo. The study itself looked at all 3 Resaca systems, but ultimately the Corps is recommending improvements to Resaca de la Guerra, Resaca del Rancho Viejo. You'll notice here these different numbers, just different areas that the Corps is recommending improvements. You'll notice some gaps. And the reason for those gaps, because again, keep in mind with the Corps, it's an ecosystem restoration project, and it's focused on restoring those areas where there is an opportunity to keep native vegetation or preserve that native vegetation. In some areas, the area's already developed. The neighborhood's developed. It's not with the Corps, we're not looking at established neighborhoods essentially.
So this project, just to be clear, is not a flood reduction project.
Not with the Corps.
It's a side benefit, but it's not the core.
The driving,
For the core. Got it.
correct, with the Corps.
It's not. It is a restoration project.
Yeah, with the Corps again, the National Ecosystem Plan, Restoration Plan, this is just the overall total cost. The total cost, we're looking at about $311 million. And the Corps recertifies this cost every 5 years. This was something we received here at the latter part of 22, and it's now at $311 million. And you'll see the footnotes there. The Corps project is over 16 contracts. One of the things early on within the feasibility, the way it's stated, it literally looked at it 16 years. It literally lists 16 years. And now working on contract one, we're quickly finding out that a contract is not going to last a year. The reality is that a contract may last more than 1 year. Just a design for contract one, we're in our second year. And then we still have construction. So just wanted to point that out. Feasibility study, initially we thought, 16 years. So really I'm using the term 16 contracts moving forward because each contract may be a little.
So this $202 million, this is all going to be spent locally, coming into the local economy type stuff?
Absolutely. Again, it's restoring and improving the two Resaca systems within the city of Brownsville. And it's looking at improvements, and I'll touch on this a little bit, but it's looking at, even though it's an ecosystem restoration project, it also includes some infrastructure, that will aid with city drainage. It's ecosystem restoration project with some dredging as part of with the Corps, and then looking at water control infrastructure, valves, weirs that will provide some benefits to the city from a drainage standpoint. And then there's ecotourism as well, and I'll touch on that. Just to reiterate, ecosystem restoration project for the Corps. And this is the vegetation communities that they're after. These three particular vegetation communities are imperiled with extinction. So essentially, we're not a lot of this habitat left. And this is the focus from the Corps' perspective. Contract one, specifically now moving into contract one, a project management plan and a design agreement were signed earlier in May in 2021. These were signed by the city of Brownsville, these agreements with the Corps. And then in April 2021, we began the design and with all the project development team that consists of the Corps, ourselves, and we invited the city staff as well. But this is what you're looking at, just for background for contract one. Since April 2021 to now, we're still in what's called a PED, pre-construction engineering and design. And we're at the design phase, 95%. The cost for the design was roughly about $2,080,000. Cost shared at 65-35. So our share is $728,000. This has already been provided. These funds have already been provided to the Corps. As a matter of fact, at 95%, right now, I think there's about, of these funds that have already been transferred, I think there's a balance of about $200,000 left for design, within the Corps funds. Contract one, what we're looking at is improving three segments. On the southmost, there are the three segments, one by Morningside Park, what we call Jagu Resaca, segment 93. And then downstream of that, there's a drainage ditch, and that's what we call segment Resaca 94. Again, it's improving there. And just to reiterate, excavating 93, that's dry now. excavating, some native vegetation, and removing invasives, and some water control features, pump and some weirs and gate valves.
This is an interesting place to start because historically, Southmost feels, at least their people feel underserved. And so here we are starting in kind of one of the more underserved neighborhoods. So that's great to hear. Thank you.
And early on, if you look at the feasibility study, there was a few other, we were going to start at a few other Resakas. And after some discussions, we bumped this one up for it to be the first contract. Construction cost, this is one that's slightly different from what we provided on Friday. The contract one construction cost estimate is about $3 million, $102,470. What I failed to include in what I provided Friday was what you have there, 2.67 million. That's actual construction. I failed to include notice the second asterisk there, construction management and oversight expenses. That's something, information they provided. So that bumped it up to $3.1 million. And there's the breakdown of that. The federal share would be about 2 million and ours 1,085,864. That's just for contract one construction.
And are we on track for meeting our obligations?
That's
Jumped ahead. Sorry.
No, that's okay. It's one of my next slides. Just a quick few photos of the Resaka banks there within Jagur Resaka. Just a few visuals. And what you'll see there, that we need some improvements needing to the banks there. But these are just a few. In that particular parcel. Now, there's other areas where you see, some, where you will work on the Resaka banks, but every effort was made to ensure that we weren't going into a property that was already established. So moving forward to your question here, we're at 95% design right now, and it's essentially at a standstill. And it's, look at the fourth bullet, it's pending construction. That has moved along. As a matter of fact, we just received the notice, I believe it was today.
This morning.
It's been a long day, yeah, okay. I believe it was this morning that has moved on to the next hurdle. First hurdle was getting, ensuring that our project was part of one of the projects that the Congressman selected. And now the second hurdle was the fact that it's actually made it to the FY24 Energy and Water Development Bill. It's still a few hurdles left. It's only at the House side. Got to move on to Senate, and then you go back and forth. But it's moving along from that standpoint. If we were to receive this funding, then we're able to continue with the mission.
And so by Congressman, you mean?
Gonzalez, Congressman.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Just want to make sure we said his name because,
Sure.
oh my goodness, we owe him a thank you for this because.
Absolutely. And not only that, there was some, and I'll touch on that. We did receive community support from various entities, and I'll point those out.
What's the contribution that we're talking about?
We requested a 1.7 million request, but then it was tweaked to about $2 million,
16,000.
Yeah, so, which is essentially the Congressman requested a little more, and that is to cover, to get the construction project started. So moving forward, this is where we're at. We're at 95% design with the Corps, and then essentially it's on hold for now until we move forward with funding. One of the things that's required by the Corps is that we have some agreements with the irrigation district and the drainage district. That's something we could move forward, pending direction. Option that I'm going to mention is an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding. The process that I'm talking about, receiving funding from the Corps, yeah, if that funding becomes available, we go through the normal process of they pitch in their share, we pitch in our share, and off we go. A project partnership agreement would be signed at that point, and we move forward. Now, one option that's on the table now from the Corps is that if we want to sign a memorandum of understanding, and this is city and Corps, then we could move forward. Now, what that would require is that we provide the federal, that we provide all the funding to move forward with construction one, even the federal share, with the understanding that when funding becomes available, we would receive credit. It's just an option if we opted not to wait, for the community project fund and we wanted to move forward, continue forward now, sign this MOU, there'd be an MOU executed. This is their core standard template language where we agree to move forward with their share, in addition to ours, for construction, with the understanding that if and when funding became available, we will receive credit for that.
And if it doesn't?
And if it doesn't, it's a risk. Just in a summary, back to the Corps, just to summarize it, I did want to just reiterate that the Corps project is primarily focused on ecosystem restoration. That's the driving force. Of course, it includes elements that improve city drainage and provide an economic benefit to the city through, the potential increase for ecotourism. You add native vegetation and definitely there's a potential for ecotourism benefits. The Corps is recommending improvements only to two systems, Resaca de la Guerra and Rancho Viejo system. It's a 16 contract constructions improvement schedule, not 16 years. And it's very likely then years back, we may have been saying 16 years, but it's 16 contracts. Each contract completion may be a little greater than 2 years because we're finding that out now that we're in contract one, design, we're going on 2 years for contract one. So the design to construction may be longer than that. And then design and bidding, just want to clarify that the design and bidding, all this is performed by the Corps. We contribute to the design, we're part of a team, but once it gets to actual completing the design, they're the lead in the design, and then they will also draft bid documents and go out for bids, to contractors, local contractors, et cetera. Construction improvements to be private contractors. The Corps requires that land to be improved, be acquired in fee simple. And what does that mean? That the land to be improved may be acquired via purchase or it may be via condemnation. You go offer, some purchase, and if they agree to purchasing, then it's purchase. Otherwise, it would require the land to be acquired in fee simple, which could be condemnation.
So if we wanted to avoid condemnation and say, cut out parts of a project, would the Corps be okay with that? Or do we have to kind of follow the plan laid out as?
We've actually made, we've asked those questions, and for the most part, they really would like to adhere to what the recommendation is via the feasibility study. And that's the answer that we received.
So like to is kind of a tough answer. Is it like the project's cut, we lose our funding, or is it just we upset people, but we kind of keep marching forward?
I could inquire again so that we get a little more direct answer, but for now it's been we really want to stick to the recommended plan. And clearly, but one thing they've made very clear is that anything that they improve, they want to see in fee simple.
You could always choose not to move forward with one of the contracts.
Absolutely.
I mean, my guess is where Joseph is going, that you don't want to end up condemning people's Resaca front property and shoving a project, onto their property without them wanting this to happen. The condemnation of, I looked at the appendix on that document, and there are a lot of properties. And you're talking, over 1,000?
the, this is what I have, those 3 acres of city and private lands. Of the, of 646 tracts, with less than 3% are city-owned, less than 2% state, federal, school district, 75% residential, and 20% commercial.
Sorry, but did you say 600? I thought it was.
Yeah, of 640,
Okay,
I'm
so
sorry,
500.
of 646 tracts.
Essentially 500 residential homes that would have their property either purchased or condemned.
Sure.
And so it would be useful to understand what that looks like. I mean, are they losing the control of the last foot of their property? Are they losing control of their entire backyard? This is important to know.
This was raised at the beginning. I'm surprised to see this back again. I thought we had killed this part of the project where they had required a purchase. We're not going to get support. We all know it. Why are we keep messing with it? No one's going to sell or condemn their property to the Corps. I said that at every public meeting that they had, and their answers were, and everybody threw up their shoulders. I mean, it's a very good question. Do we have an answer yet of what it looks like? What does it mean to the private landowner? What are they going to be able to do?
Yeah, one of the things that we did ask recently, probably over the last several months that we've been, honing in on the real estate portion of it. Keep in mind that early on with the feasibility study, that was part of the project initially, so you're looking at it from a bird's eye view, right? And now that we literally started with contract 1, we started to survey. We literally now finding out the surveys were just finalized this week, quite frankly, for contract 1. But obviously we had a little bit of an understanding since we began the design. But now that we're finding that, for example, contract 1, you asked the question, how much was it? Yeah, for contract 1, what we're looking at are small slots along the bank, not the entire parcel of a particular property. But back to your question, we've gone back and asked any opportunity for, what can the residents do if in fact, because the Corps is very particular about protecting that investment. So we've asked the question, can you go in there and have access to it? And the response we've gotten is for we can definitely work on a potential easement, like a access easement after construction. They want the improvements. I don't want to confuse folks here. They want it fee simple. They want the property in fee
I think
simple.
that's something that we need to raise at the highest levels. That's something that is not going to be met favorably. It was not met favorably publicly 5 years ago. It wasn't met. I thought when I was chair 2 years ago, I thought we had addressed this issue saying we're not going to agree to that. And that we were going to demand that the Corps look at other alternatives other than fee simple exchange of property. I can tell you right now that I've talked to many, probably, several dozen landowners, and I got laughed out of the room. This is not going to happen if you're going to lose control of that property without a clear definition of exactly what improvements you're going to make, without any kind of assurances of control of what can or cannot be done on that land. It's not going to happen. And I know there's portions of this project, and it's very dear and near to my heart, so I'm a little bit upset about it, that can be done without that exchange of property. There's a lot of public land or some land that is not owned by private, and there's a lot of options that we can do that don't require that. I think it's very important that we look at options that involve not only one, what we can do without that component of purchasing land, and two, land of the Corps to give us alternative options. And if that means talking at higher levels outside of the district office, then we need to do that. And I think we have plenty of people, both in the audience and that we employ, to help us make that happen. Because, this is a very long-term project. If we don't know where we're going right now in regards to that, and to know that hurdle exists right now, I hope I'm wrong. Maybe landowners should be more amenable to that, but I don't think so.
We could definitely, follow up, schedule some meetings and.
Renee, let me make 2 comments if you can, maybe you and Mike can address these. I hope I'm on topic. Number 1, could you describe in a short way, in a Reader's Digest version, the acquisition of property, if a landowner owns Resaca property, they usually own a certain portion out into the water. Describe a way in which, how would this land be, for?
Yeah, and it's gonna, for the most part, that's correct. Most residents own up to halfway. There's some exceptions. There's instances where, neighborhood only goes up to the bank and the other side owns all the way across, but it varies. But for the most part, you're absolutely right. People own up to halfway of the Resaca. So from the core standpoint, if that happens to be a segment like the very first one that we're looking at, where they own up to halfway, that's what they're wanting to, well, in this particular case, it's just and for some of these parcels, it's just a small area along the banks. The rest is city-owned in this particular case. But back to your question, if it's all the way up to halfway of Resaca and that particular segment is recommended for improvements, well, then that's what would be required to be in fee simple from the center of the.
Core would need access to that land.
Yes.
To approve it, but the property owner has to give.
Sell it or get it condemned.
The other question I have, Mike, maybe you can help us with this. Since this project started, the Resaca restoration, we had a tabulation of a fee structure for over several years. We were going to collect money. We collaborated with the city of Brownsville. It was approved. That funding was primarily for what?
For both.
I'm thinking, and I sat here and I listened to the presentation. We had some people that tabulated, hey, we can collect X amount of money for ratepayers. And it's going to go towards this Resaca restoration. It's going to be a collaboration with the Corps of Engineers. Now we're looking at this 65-35. That funding, Mike, right now, where is that money that's been collected? It's been collected for how long?
When we start the fee effective June of 22. So since then through May of 23, we've collected about $3 million net of the city's transfer. So there is a slide and there is a worksheet at the very end as well that forecast all the revenue that would be collected over all the way through 2038. And under you can see.
It's a long period of time. The money we've been collecting since June of 22 is sitting.
Yeah, no, it's sitting right now in the Resaca account.
Are we spending some of that money towards?
About $300 and some thousand worth of expenses have been incurred. And the remaining funds are sitting there basically because the core, we're on hold right now with the core. That construction hasn't begun, and so we've accumulated some funds.
It's just my opinion. We need to really look carefully this project. The community certainly needs to understand when we're collecting this money, we have it. This money collection goes for several years. We want to avoid any type of future debacle or confusion or episode.
Well, especially if there's concern about the feasibility of the project going forward because of possible I mean, I for one am against a process that requires condemnation of people's property, that don't want
This
to
is the
sell.
first time I've heard that word used in any presentation for this.
Well,
So
for one.
I agree with
I'm
you.
against that.
I'm surprised to hear that.
My concern would be if we continue to collect this money for a project that ultimately may not move forward. At some point, we start looking at it at the possibility of it not being feasible because of the condemnation or other issues. Then we're getting really close to a situation that we've already been through. And that resulted in a lot of headaches and a lot of damage to public trust. And so I think we have to move real quickly in terms of the condemnation issues.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, but I disagree. It's nothing like what we've already done. Because there's a lot in this package that can be done without purchasing land or condemnation. And there's a lot of necessary items that need to be done for the purpose of water storage control and other benefits associated.
Oh, but we
with it.
can't do water storage control. Remember, this funding is tied towards ecosystem.
No, that's
restoration.
not, no, we can. We can benefit from that.
We can benefit. from
Yes.
it
that's what I'm
If we
talking
do.
about. The benefits are substantial for the dredging component.
Renee, perhaps, or Mike,
That's a difference. There's a huge difference.
Well, so that would be, well, no, there is, and it would be important to understand what what everybody's saying. We can't get away with the poor.
I think we need to move this to Ms. Gilbert. We need to move forward as a workshop very quickly, including the entire board. So we can get a handle on this thing. And Renee, I believe soccer restoration is important for this community. And I believe there should be a certain funding to protect it. This gets a little complicated as we're moving forward. But Mike, I do believe I need to talk to Marilyn.
Yeah, we can certainly put together or schedule a
I'd just like to add that the commission shares these concerns at a deep level. I know when we approved the Resaca fee, PUB came presented, and never once did they mention condemnation or acquisition as part of the use of these funds. And two, it was never mentioned that the funding was in doubt from the federal government on the grant. So it was basically like we were pressured to say, hey, we're going to lose $200 million if we don't do this fee, right? And so it made a lot of sense to do this. But if it's not a guaranteed project and we're just collecting money that we're not, if it's a hard time getting $2 million from the federal government, how are we going to get 200 million, right? And how long is that going to take, right? And this fee structure ramps up, I believe, from $4 a month to $12 a month pretty quickly.
Yes, it does.
So it's going to impact our poorest of the poor, so, incrementally, right? I think we really need to act swiftly here on deciding our path forward. Because I agree with the chairman here that, I think it's an important initiative, but it's all about communication with the public, with the board, with the commission, and making sure we're all on the same page. I mean, that we need to learn from our lessons here.
Right. I'm just going to add a couple things. One is we've already run into issues, with the fee and the fact that, structure set up, we sent to the city of Brownsville. The city of Brownsville had a typo. And now we have we're collecting less money than we should out at year 5 or something like that. And so,
Correct.
All these issues exist. We want to really address them all. We want to, tighten our story up because this is important for the city of Brownsville. This is extremely important. It brings in hundreds of millions of dollars, local economy. It helps us with our flooding problems, but it doesn't help PUB. None of this, we aren't responsible for flooding. We aren't responsible for ecosystem restoration. We're doing this to help the city. But if it means that PUB takes another hit, I think I would have strong feelings about moving forward. So I want to make sure that we do everything we can and be as open about every single detail, including this fee issue that I talked about, and document in public everything, because again, this is for the city of Brownsville.
I'd like to add that, to add to that, it's not entirely true. It's just for the city of Brownsville. This is why PUB is involved with it. The primary reason PUB was involved with this was to increase the storage capacity of the primary Resaca system, of both Resaca systems, to be able to hold water for irrigation or for water storage in emergency systems and transport of that water. It's not flooding. It's water for storage and supply. And that's the capability for that versus an additional reservoir is the balance we have to strike here. So that's something we need to discuss, but we did not enter into this years ago off of ecosystem and flooding.
This constructive discussion is why we need to move forward, Mike, with the workshop.
We'll schedule a workshop. Work with the board.
I think all of us need to get on the same page. Everybody here knows how passionate I am about Resaca and how important I am. If you haven't sold me, it's going to be hard selling others. So I'm surprised to see that word. I'm very upset to see the word condemnation. I'm upset to see the pay. I understand the pandemic had a huge role in this. But I warned all along, from the moment I was chair, it's in the records, that if I ever felt that the Corps was taking over things and we weren't getting our fair say, that this whole part of it might just go by the way. So I think we desperately need to get brought up to speed and everything and be on the same page.
Thank you.
Just a comment, the second portion of the presentation talks about restore. And that's the second project.
Let's get that one.
We focused on ecosystem restoration. The second is a little more flood damage reduction. And that project is underway. Any questions on that, on restore?
Can we calculate, and I have asked this before, but maybe not, foot acre capacity that we've added to the Resaca?
We can do that. I can tell you that just looking at the entire three systems, early projections were, if we removed about 4,045,000 cubic yards, we'd gain about 816 million gallons. Is that what you were after?
Yeah, so, and it would be nice just to,
To look at specifically what we've done thus far.
if you guys made this data available to me, I could,
Sure.
do.
I want to say we're about 150,000 acres roughly for what we've done thus far from when we began to now. But I'll confirm that data for you.
Great, thank you.
Okay?
Renee, we do appreciate you standing there and taking this on. So that's a very important matter for the PUB and for the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike, I'm sure you have a short on next.
Yes, item left in the general manager report, the hurricane preparedness. As you all know, June 1st was the start of hurricane season. We wanted to provide the board with an update on steps taken in preparation for this. So in your board packet, you will find a list of all the steps that have already been completed and others that will be implemented once the general emergency plan is activated. So I would like to point out that the incident command staff did complete a 16-hour hurricane preparedness tabletop exercise at the new service center back on May the 17th and 18th. So our incident command staff and crews were also very active during the April 23rd and 29th storms that came through our area. We actually partially activated the general emergency plan during the April 23rd weather event. So our staff performed admirably and did a great job in restoring our system as quickly as possible. We have well-seasoned staff that has gone through an emergency in the past and know how to prepare for these weather events. So I'm going to present all that list, but we'll highlight a few of the major steps that have already been taken in preparation for hurricane season. First and foremost, the PPB has taken was to update its general emergency plan, which is posted on BPUB's Central. This is PUB's internal website and available to all of the employees. Mutual aid agreements were updated and established with the with APPA and with STEC. Additionally, we did submit some additional documents that were required as part of Texas Mutual Aid Agreement Group. This is some additional resources, mutual aid resources that will be available to us. Staff has updated the hurricane preparedness section of our website. This section includes comprehensive guides, safety tips, frequently asked questions, contact information, and real-time updates. Key Accounts has reviewed and updated their point of contact for key account customers. Tree trimming for vegetation issues that were identified during the recent storms have completed. We've reviewed current inventory levels with the various divisions to determine the adequacy of stock levels. And the last thing I wanted to point out was the company-owned generators and rented generators are in place throughout the system and have been tested, with the exception of 4: the water plant 1, water plant 2, the admin building, and the annex building. Those generators are scheduled to be tested next week. And so these are just a few of the major steps that have been taken in preparation for the hurricane season. The complete report is in your board packet. Please review and let us know if you have any questions.
I got one. Can you, sorry, I know I've said a lot. So there's actually a very important bullet point in here about the Black Star certification. Can I get you to just explain a little bit about what that means and why it is important? Because I think it's important everybody here knows.
Yeah,
Especially
so
since I
that I
was
would
just
like
in a
to,
country that had a Black Star.
I have mentioned it.
Director? Black Star?
Nobody wants to, okay?
Nobody wants. So,
Okay.
yeah, we would have to get back to you. No, sorry.
Mike, make sure
Unless
we
I,
get that
you know.
back, please, for the next,
Yeah.
make sure we get that item back for the next meeting, so we can have an understanding of the black.
Black Start.
Black Start.
Yeah, I was just in a country where we lost power and we had to go through that process, so. You've decided to step up?
Director of Power Supply, I'm Albert Gomez. Only been there for a couple of months, so, bear with me on some of the questions, but yes, what is your question on Black Star?
Can you explain why Black Start certification is important and what it means for both the citizens of Brownsville and
Oh, Black Star.
ERCOT?
Well,
And if you want to punt, we can punt to the next meeting, but I think it is something we should talk
why
about.
don't we punt for the next meeting? We'll have
Okay,
a good answer for you then.
good.
I appreciate it.
That's fair.
Thank you.
We'll bring that to, back to you, Dr.
Yeah,
Thank
please.
you.
All right. So that's all we have for the end of the general manager's report.
Ready for a recess. Let's move forward. Okay, next item for discussion, Mike, is the number 2 presentation of state legislative activities.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So our state lobbyist, the Garcia Group and Focus Advocacy will make a presentation of state legislative and regulatory activities. They previously presented the report to the Regulatory Policy Committee on June 1st. So here with us today, we have Buddy Garcia, Joe Garcia, and Kurt Seitlitz. I'll invite them up to make a presentation. Where's that? Well, you can use the.
Right. Thank you, Mike. My name is Curtis Seidlitz. I'm a partner with Focused Advocacy. And together today with my colleagues, Lindley Hurd, who is by video, Buddy Garcia and Joe Garcia, we're going to try to give you all a little brief update of what's gone on in the regular session of the legislative session ending May the 29th, and give you a little preview of the impacts that we think are coming about and going forward during the interim, where there'll be a lot of activity at a lot of places. We're not going to deliver the whole load of the slide deck. We did that the other day. So in response to Mike's request and Marilyn's for a little bit of brevity, I'm going to try to touch on just a couple of the pages, today's discussion and the overview. I'm going to try to focus a little bit on some of the electric issues, but he's going to talk about some water and then what we can see coming up. We basically work with the legislative bodies, and that includes also the Lieutenant Governor's Office, the Governor's Office, the PUC, ERCOT, TCEQ, and the Texas Water Development Board. We do some work also with the Controller's Office, but those are the main venues that we work at. So going into this legislative session, the main focus was on still responding to Winter Storm Uri. And speaking of Black Start, that was the next step in Winter Storm Uri. We were about to find out if Black Start was really going to work. And we actually found out that we were very ill prepared for a Black Start event, which is trying to start up the whole system going forward piece by piece by piece around the system. So the legislature was very concerned about that, as well as all the state elected officials. So going into this session, they wanted to know what we had done about bringing new dispatchable generation to the market, what we were doing on market design. In other words, do we have to change our whole ERCOT competitive market of an energy-only market? Do we have to change that going forward? So those issues kind of dominated. And what the legislature did, from about 300 pieces of legislation, they kind of whittled it down to 3 big bills. One of which was the sunset bill, which is the review every so often as to whether or not we continue the PUC and ERCOT. So that was up, and that was in House Bill 1500. And what 1500 did was it focused on market design issues. And BPUB and the staff and Marilyn and Mike, Jaime, everybody worked very hard to make sure that we protected our role as public power going forward and BPUB's ability to operate within that market, because we actually do compete in the competitive market on the wholesale side. So those were very, very important issues to us. The legislature mainly put out parameters and guidelines for going forward for the PUC to determine whether or not future market design. On the dispatchable power generation, they responded to it by passing a bill, which is a state-funded program, a loan program, being some of the Texas Water Development Board grants in the past, but they would actually loan utilities, merchant utilities, utilities, low interest, 3%, 20-year loans to build new dispatchable generation within a certain amount of time. The big issue, of course, is what happens when the wind doesn't blow in the evening? What happens when the sun goes down here in just about an hour? The key time of day these days is 9 p.m. We're going to find out in the next week, as y'all well know, as ERCOT's about to hit 82,000 plus. We're in conservation mode for the next week. So we will see if a lot of these processes and plans that were implemented in phase one of the market design work for the next week. So we're going to have a lot to do during the interim, because House Bill 1500 mainly told the PUC and ERCOT, keep studying this issue, come up with recommendations, have great stakeholder input, which is good news to us, to let the people that actually operate a system have input into problem solving as we go forward. So that's the kind of the overall height of the electric. Buddy, you want to talk a little bit about some of the water issues?
I would also add part of our presentation last week that some of the themes that are continuing to at the state level are really attempting to limit what municipalities can spend, the scope of municipalities. A lot of the education we do is explain exactly how the municipally owned utilities that the city owns add value to a city budget, add the bond ratings, are collectively a good way to do things. The state has genuinely had issues with some of these topics because of other cities, not because of Brownsville, but because of other cities whose choices I think they're trying to limit. So those things are going to continue. As water goes, this last session was probably one of the better sessions since the mid-90s to deal with water. The House Bill 20, Senate Bill 28. You don't want to put that back on the next screen. Thank you. I was just trying to scroll up and down. Thank you. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. Up and down. Thank you. Senate Bill 28 is the water, creates a new water fund, as some anticipates over $2 billion being used for desal, aquifer storage, flexibility to Water Development Board, who will develop all the rules this summer, and the implementation of that bill. Accompanying Senate Bill 28, which is the new water fund, is SJR Senate Joint Resolution 75, proposing a constitutional amendment to allow the creation of this water fund. Texans will vote on that in November. The government Senate Bill 28 on Friday, June 9th. And start thinking water supplies. I mean, the presentation earlier on the drought, a good example of because of the Southwest Regional Water Authority. I think that would be a good example of something that the state envisions, anticipates being expanded, so that you can increase water supplies, think water leaks, things of that nature, where the key, there's going to be three buckets, but the key objectives, if once they're met by the applicants, and the Water Development Board will develop these rules, the function, I think, of the continuing of implementing state money into water supply is very key to the leadership right now. And that was a bipartisan effort, I think. So you'll find, anticipating Senate SJR 75 passes in November, that the financing of these water projects are probably right up your all's alley, given the proximity you have not only with the desal, but with two areas around you that fit the mold of what the legislature wants to include for financing. There are several bills that passed that dealt with, as Kirk mentioned, with electricity. One thing I wanted to mention that's not in this presentation, late May, EPA proposed a new rulemaking that will deal with greenhouse gases, reductions, if you will, to emissions. And the state of Texas has to submit a state plan that's, I think they have till 2026 for their state plan to be approved by EPA. But the issues that creates for all of this dispatchable power that our leadership wants to engage in, and not necessarily the permits that are going to be associated with them. If it's coal, for example, it looks like EPA wants to phase that out. It's going to, those control measures on current power plants, I'm sure there'll be litigation on that, but the EPA is proposing a rather robust carbon capture, clean hydrogen program. And as you all are aware, those are very expensive. So as that process moves forward, that may affect some of the plans that the state has for operation of electricity plants or dispatchable power generation moving in. There were several bills that failed. If you wanted to hit on that, on some that would have affected y'all, including general fund transfer.
I'll just briefly, be remiss if I didn't mention, Public Power had a really good session this time because there were bills to change the governance structure from a local control of the utility owned by the city, as well as the general fund transfer, as well as requirements on how and where you spend your money for vegetation management, as well as bills that would determine whether or not you recovered your power cost kind of based on a hindsight of was that a good deal or not, whether you could put it in your rates. That arose out of a case in Austin where they'd invested in a wood chip plant many years ago and a lot of customers. And also the ability of the PUC to set the rates of the local utility. But all 5 of those concepts were voted down or killed during the legislative session. So is the threat still out there on a lot of those particular issues? Yes, and we anticipate that they will come back next time. Sure, buddy, you want to add anything? Yep.
So over 8,100 bills were filed this session, and while some may not have electricity or water in it, we try to analyze all aspects of the legislation. For example, the border security package, a bill by Senator Birdwell from Waco, SB 2, had a provision that required DPS to patrol for illegal foreign entry of nationals. And I brought this up to Maryland because I know y'all have an intake plant. You got 50 acres along the border. And when I brought it up to Maryland, Border Patrol, they all actually have an agreement with the Border Patrol on those acreage. And so now the question is, if this bill passes, will we have to have that same patrolling agreement with DPS? And so those are some of the ancillary things that we look at because of the uniqueness of the Brownsville system that's on the border by the sea. 2 sessions ago, when AT&T wanted to put cellular equipment on poles, we said, hey, we're in a hurricane area. Our standards are a little greater than what you would expect in your municipal urban areas. So I think that of the 8,100 bills filed, a lot of them may not impact us, but we try to analyze all components of it. And so that's what we try to convey to you on the impact of this legislation.
One other thing, and Mayor, this may be right up your alley, House Bill 2127, the state preemption bill that did pass, that will affect ordinances passed by municipalities for a statewide remedy, if you will, on county and municipal regulations that has yet to really be, I think, understood completely, but that will affect the city's ability. Part of that was an attempt to have a more uniform method for cities not to do their own thing. But that's another example of a bill that's greatly going to affect the city And then one other thing I'll leave you with is the number of agencies we work with, whether it be the TCEQ, Restore Act, or the sludge permit that we're working with them on trying to transfer that sludge permit to the port. There's a number of issues, or even the DOE monies. Y'all are talking about different monies that we were working with on the Coastal Resiliency Plan and trying to find money. There's Inflation Reduction Act money and Department of Energy had money that we were to work with. Commissioner Glotfeldt, PUC, had approached Maryland and Eddie Campidano at the port to be on that resiliency board to try and apply for money that may be available for coastal resiliency projects. So these are some of the things also outside the legislative realm that we deal with, or the Railroad Commission, or any of the other agencies that were mentioned that we play liaison for on y'all's behalf. One last thing I'd also like to mention is what a nice opportunity it was to work with Senator LaMantia, Representative Gomez, very, very responsive and easy to approach and to educate. They were very supportive of all our efforts over the session, as well as Representative Jamie Lopez. So I just wanted to pass that on as well, because that connectivity is very important as these issues are moving very fast. Anything else to close? Any questions?
Any questions? We certainly appreciate the information. I have heard that you have a very close collaboration working with Ms. Gilbert on many issues, Impact PUB, and we look forward to receiving more information from you in the future. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I just want to say thank you to all of you. You gave a very detailed and very well-informed presentation to the policy subcommittee meeting, and we really were able to. You take subjects that are, well, let's be honest, not very exciting, and you made it quite understandable. And I'm glad that you're out there looking after our interests. And please keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman and members, we appreciate the opportunity to present, but if, as mentioned in the last meeting, if we need to go before the Southmost Regional Water Authority as well, or anyone else you recommend that we can update or have workshops with, we're at your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Right, Mr. Troy, this is a no action item.
Okay. The next item, Mike.
Next item, a consideration approval of a service contract with Focus Advocacy. So on April 11, 2022, the board approved the contract with Focus Advocacy as one of two firms for legislative consulting services with an expiration date of March 2024. This contract is being amended as follows. The point of contract now being Maryland Gilbert. The amended contract start date is July 1st of 23, and keeping the existing contract through this date. The new contract will be in effect for 24 months through June 30 of 2025. The existing contract monthly fee will be reduced 50% to $4,500. All of the terms and conditions of the existing contract remain unchanged and in full force in effect. So at this time, BPB staff recommends the board consider possible approval of this contract amendment.
Okay. We have a motion on this item. Any discussion?
That's up here, sorry. Okay.
And just to make sure, we expect no changes in services?
No, the scope remains the same. We've been assured that there won't be any change in scope or services.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve item number 3. As recommended.
Motion to approve as recommended by administration.
I'll second that.
Have a second by Joseph. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Motion passes. Thank you. Mike, number 4.
Number 4, consideration and approval to cancel the service contract with the Garcia Group and approve a new service contract with Modern Stewardship. So here again, on April 11th of 2020, the board did a contract with the Garcia Group as one of two firms for legislative and consulting services with an expiration date of March of 2024. This contract is being requested to be canceled and replaced with a new service contract with Modern Stewardship. So the scope of services will remain the same as the existing contract, but the compensation has been reduced by 50% from $9,000 to $4,500 per month. The new contract and payment to Modern Stewardship will begin July 1st of 2023 and be in effect for 24 months through June 30, 2025. The existing contract with the Garcia Group will stay in place until June 30, 2023. All other contract details remain the same. So at this time, BPB staff recommends the board consider possible cancellation of the service contract with the Garcia Group and approve a new service contract with Modern Stewardship effective July 1, 2023.
Okay. Do board members have any comments or discussion item?
I do have a question. The recommended action says consider possible cancellation or to cancel? Is that
To cancel.
To
Yeah, if we're gonna approve the new contract, then we need to cancel.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to approve item 4. That's written with the amendment that says to cancel, not consider possible cancel.
Okay, we have a motion by,
I second.
and seconded by Joseph. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion passes. Mike, let's move on to number 5.
All right, so this is pretty much a housekeeping item. The drafted resolution and the rules governing the board of directors was presented at the Regulatory Policy Committee at the meeting of June 1st of 2023. The committee did make the recommendation for the board of directors to have full discussion of the meeting time options and other noted changes to the resolution. So the redlined resolution is in your packet for easy reference. So we'll start off here on Rule 1. This establishes the meeting times. The city commission meetings are typically held at 5 o'clock. The BB board also typically held meetings at 5 o'clock, but then took action to move to 5:30 here in November of 2022. And it was done to accommodate the public sufficient time to attend our meetings to address the board through public comments. The committee recommended 3 options for consideration to the board of directors, and which we'll go over the subsequent slide. So Rule 4, the closed meetings, the proposed language that's being proposed does provide some flexibility to record, seal, and file the closed meeting minutes by other individuals. Currently, with the city secretary is absent and there's no designated person. So the added language here is that the city treasurer or other designated individuals shall record, seal, and so forth. So is the board okay with that?
I think as the chair of the policy committee, I'd like to say, Mr. Chairman, I think most of these changes, with the exception of the issue of the meeting time, were fairly rudimentary. If the board has reviewed them, I'd like to just go ahead and say that we can just approve them as a whole after the discussion of the meeting time that we have. I don't think we need to go through every bit of item unless
There's a couple where
I think
the
there's
board will
one
have to
items.
select.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so,
Let's just scoot and move to those then.
okay, we'll move on to those. Okay, so starting off here with the board of business, the committee did provide 3 options, option A and B. The meeting start time is either at 5 o'clock, we'll change it to 5 o'clock, remains the same, or keep it at 5:30. Option C, we would start the time at 5 o'clock and move the public comment period right after the general manager's report. And so this would afford time for the public to show up in time for public comment. So which option would the board?
Yeah, well, we deliberated that, you know, we had adopted 5:30 and I didn't want to make any kind of, well, we didn't have the authority to make the recommendation of moving the meeting time. I think if 5:30 works for everybody, then we should keep it. That's the general consensus. But we also thought that if for some reason wanted to come up to 5, it didn't remain in the same time that the city commission meets, that we would push back the public comment period a little bit to folks, be very understandable amount of time they would need to move from their jobs that normally get out at 5 o'clock, give them some time to be here with a possible even additional change that if somebody did want to make a public comment later, we could amend that. So that was the thinking that we had, and we can vote. These are directly related to the three choices we have. Either keep it at 5, as is, 5:30 as is, or a 5 o'clock start time with public comments pushed back a little bit.
Was there a concern or was the issue with the 5:30 time raised by somebody or what? Is
It's just that I think they've raised it to us because the meetings are running, late, I mean, we have long meetings, right? And people have to be here till, 8:39, 9, the earlier start may get people a half hour. And one option that was raised that might happily blend everyone together is still give the public the chance to meet, to share their concerns at a time that's not right at 5 o'clock. So hopefully get us, a little bit, get the hardworking staff that's put in a hard work day and then has to stay here till 9 o'clock and get them time for a warm dinner. So they deserve a warm dinner too.
So as much as I like seeing the BPUB staff late at night, I do agree that moving to a 5 o'clock start time is a good idea. We changed it in response to all the problems that happened with the TNASC audit. We have had very few to no people come in from the public recently. I see pros and cons to moving the public comment period to later in the meeting. Because that kind of is an iffy start time depending on, what we have in closed session. But I think, there are advantages to letting people show up at 5:30, 6 o'clock maybe and give comment.
It would be before the closed session.
It would be, oh, sorry, I missed that.
Yeah. It's probably going to be it's pretty consistent that we probably started around 5:15 or so.
5, then I think that's a great idea. Yeah, I missed-
Yeah, I think just in terms of our meetings at the commission, usually we have public comment after the proclamations, before the consent agenda, and we've never had any issues with complaints regarding timing or people not being able to attend to provide public comments. So I don't think it's an issue moving to 5 o'clock. And I mean, yeah, I don't think it's.
I'd be willing to support option C. Okay, that's a great plan.
So we have option C as a motion to move forward.
I'll make that.
I'll second it.
All right. We'll move on. This particular item here was not
We don't need that.
covered in the committee.
We made a motion, we're gonna do an action as a whole, yeah.
That's the whole at the end. Yes, at the end. I'm sorry. Apologize for that. So that was just the one item. And so now on this particular item, this was not covered at the committee meeting. So we just wanted to staff was proposing consideration of following, change the registration time from 15 minutes to 1 hour. And so it just allows more time for administratively, I guess, get everybody in order. So, and then the next one would be to leave the speaker time allowed at 5 minutes or change it to 3 minutes to align with the City of Brownsville Commission agenda. So on those two items, so you all know.
I think uniform is key. 3 minutes is.
It's plenty.
And then align us to what the city's doing.
I know what they expect.
All right. Perfect.
I think the insults tend to happen after so cutting that out. Good.
And the last item that we would need the board to choose from is on this particular item here, the committee recommended either adding some proposed language to this rule on the paragraph B, either it talks about with the assistance of the general manager, each committee so designated will comply with the Texas Open Meetings Act as applicable, and either keep regular so the transactions of its meetings or record the meetings by either audio or video, and will cause such minutes or recordings to be retained in accordance with state law. And unless otherwise directed by the board, shall post such recordings on BPU's website. So this would pretty much be the default. The alternative would be that each committee chair should have the option to post the audio or video recording of the committee meetings.
To be clear here, the committees are not required by the Open Meetings Act to post them to the website. That's correct. So we have the option, right? Okay.
Yes.
That's why we put that forward.
But in an effort to promote transparency, I think everything should be out. the committee meetings as well as the regular meetings. So those are my thoughts.
Finance committee does that.
Fair enough.
Mhm.
That's why we put it up.
Okay.
Everybody okay with the default time? A.
Yes.
Okay, and that's all that's all we had on this particular item. So at this time, the recommended action is approval of the resolution adopting amended rules of governance of the Brownsville Public Utilities Board as discussed.
Okay, that's the administration recommendation. We have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Benavides, second by Joseph. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, big nay. Motion passes. Okay.
Thank you.
Number 6.
I'm sorry, item number 6, we have a consideration of possible action. Go ahead.
Good evening, Chair, members of the board. My name is Estrella Solórzano. I'm the Director of Customer Services. Today, I'm going to present for consideration a request for funding for the outdoor learning garden expansion. So the Children's Museum of Brownsville, CMB, is currently doing an expansion of its outdoor learning garden, which is being partially funded by the city of Brownsville. CMB is requesting $47,000 to complete this expansion, with funds going to the addition of a new spiral tower with a slide. This part of the expansion would allow children to develop their motor skills, promote outdoor play, and encourage discovery through participation. The sponsorship meets the terms of the BPUB sponsorship policy, falling into programs that promote the safe and efficient use of water and electricity, as well as programs that promote environmental education, preservation, and conservation. The tower would include the utility's name to commemorate BPUB's contribution. Of the funds requested, $32,000 would be for the tower and the slide. The additional $15,000 would go towards building a durable fence, a durable and secure fencing system around the exhibit area of the outdoor learning center, protecting not only the visitors, but the exhibit itself. This would support the $10,000 the museum received as part of a grant. If approved, the cost of the project will come from the fiscal year 2022-2023. It will be moved from our sponsorship account. However, this is not a sponsorship request. This is a request to support the cost for an exhibit, or I'm sorry, a learning garden or an exhibit at the museum, a new location at the museum. Felipe Peña, who's the executive director, he's here with us in case you have any questions regarding the overall cost or the breakdowns. That's also included in the packet, as well as a sketch of how it's going to look. Felipe is here to answer any of your questions, or if not, the recommended action is that the board will determine a recommendation at the meeting.
So yeah, Felipe, if you don't mind, just wanted to ask a couple questions about the water tower slide, which looks really cool. Oh, heavy. Like, first of all, can I do it? Second of all, I mean, you know, I don't know if you remember the McDonald's that was, well, I mean, it's still there, but right by the expressway, kind of near the Children's Museum. The old Grimace tower that they had from way back, I've just dated myself, and but man, that would get hot during the summer. Have you given any thought to that or shading the water tower?
So the second half of that area right there where the water tower is covered. It's actually already covered. So what you're seeing is an exposed version of.
Okay, so there will be shade over.
Yes,
it.
there's a canopy all the way around.
We don't have to worry about it.
And then the designer is also thinking about how the ventilation is going to work through the top portion of it, so it doesn't get too steaming hot in there.
How tall is it?
We're looking at about 9 to 10 feet. Yeah, it's not terribly tall. Yeah, good enough for the little guys to jump in.
Updated myself here. I had been the old rocket slide that we used to have. Remember that? Can't believe they that. And I think the three of us would go down the slide. Kids out there, don't go down that. Those two gentlemen over there did.
They didn't go.
No, I think it's a great idea.
I think it's.
We listened to the presentation. We saw the images.
We saw the images.
We have a motion. To observation.
I'll second that.
Move to approve the total amount, just to clarify for public.
Motion by Mr. Sampaio, second by Joseph. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion passes. Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you.
The Rockets, that's not that big metal one that they have. That used to be over at the park. People.
What happened?
Cycle.
It's seriously.
Next, we got item number 7. I'll let Cesar read the subject.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Cesar Cortina, Director of Electric T&D. So as usual, BPB staff follow the standard procedure for procurement process to solicit requests for proposals. In this case, it was for qualified high voltage electric utility pole contractors. So in general, this contract is needed to keep up with the electrical maintenance, construction, electrical programs. The initial review of the proposal revealed that one of the vendors did not fulfill the industry requirements and thus was deemed non-responsive to the solicitation and disqualified. BPB staff therefore reviewed and ranked the other two respondents, Access Power LLC and Linetech Service LLC. So in the packet, we included a copy of the valuation rating, the bid advertisement, a PowerPoint presentation for your consideration for this item. The presentation includes the reason why we need this contract, the risks of not having contractors, some information about the current contract that we have, customer benefits, BPB staffing, customer growth, which is 13.5% in the past 10 years. So considering mentioned customer growth, qualified electrical workers, and the per unit costs sketches in the proposals, it may be more recommendations, but we need to select multiple contracts based on the best value offered by each of the contractors in a particular construction type, which is overhead underground transmission. So in this case, we have a contractor having better rates in overhead versus underground transmission, or one vendor may be providing equipment to be able to do very well, the other doesn't. So if approved by the board, the initial terms of the contract will be for 2 years. With the advent of the 3 additional 1-year periods, the maximum not to exceed aggregate price for each contract will be 2 million. Maximum not to exceed annual aggregate price will be 1.25 million. At the option or discretion, the BPB board directors, the respondents are prepared to participate in the final question and answer, or even provide a presentation for the board. So at this point, I'll open up for questions that the board may have, or we want to proceed with interviews, alphabetical axis first, and then take second.
So how many linemen do we have within BPUB that are capable of doing?
I've got 8 crews, total of 42 staff, approximately.
42 staff, okay. And our turnover has been relatively significant with our linemen, right?
Yeah, the past 5 years has been, returning, securing better jobs, all different type of scenarios you can think of. Going through trying to make a study that might be help us here to get more, attract more people in this particular field. So, but again, we're just recycling the positions. So we lose one employee this week. We advertise it, and we just, like I said, we've been recycling, not adding any staff for the past 8 to 10 years.
Oh, we haven't added. So have we looked at this internally and considered the benefits of adding versus going out for contractors?
We have, and it's just been difficult to hire the staff and or you have been trying.
So if you had four more positions open today, let's say we go from 42 to 46.
I think it will be a lot better this time because of the new salaries. So
So the improved salary.
it's not competitive. It's still not competitive with the
Yeah.
the contractors, but maybe with the neighbors utility like Magic Valley or AP. But the private sector is still higher, so people will still go get jobs to these contracts, these type of contracts.
I had a long discussion with Ms. Gilbert on this topic during the agenda review. One of my questions to you and to Mike and to Connie is, this looks like it's going to be a fixed item for the future. This is a $4 million payout over a 2-year period. And what concerns me as well is, when I read the summary, we haven't hired anyone in 8 years in our this electrical department. What I need to know, and I'd like to know, is this is going to be a fixed item for the future? We're gonna outsource $4 million every 2 years for other people to do work that we may be able to do, but we don't have the personnel. Now, did you say we have 32 or 42?
42.
42. And I think this is an item that PUB administration that really needs to study and get into a workshop and to give us a plan as to whether or not y'all can implement or develop a new training program. Mike's gonna have to look at the budget. How can we be competitive with the other agents, other companies that they're basically taking our money and they're providing us with labor.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
$4 million is a lot of money.
So to answer your question, so unless we add some additional full-time employees, this would be a recurring expense into the future. And we know it is quite expensive. We did develop a cost benefit analysis. A 4-man crew on our side would cost us around $320,000 a year. Compared to, of course, we're paying out $1 million per contract for one crew of 4 for the entire year. So we could actually hire 2 additional crews for about $640,000 and take care of the work ourselves. So
One second, so let me make sure, so we could get 12 crew?
you know, we could get additional employees, 2 crews, 2 crews of 4.
Yeah.
And that'll cost us with salary and benefits around $640,000.
But right now, through $1 million.
It's costing us $1 million for one crew per year.
Of course. So in other words, we could.
Yeah, it's a crew.
3 to 1, basically, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's what I get at.
But that's the issue too, that if we're able to hire,
If we're-
as you just heard, the private sector is paying a lot higher.
Have the open positions.
No, we don't. And so that would be something that, if the board is amenable to this, we can come back to the board next month with a cost benefit analysis and a recommendation to hire FTEs in lieu of the $2 million per year. We can cut it down to 1 million. And then the following year, we can reevaluate, and if we can still hire some additional crews and get rid of the entire contract completely, then, I mean, we're gonna be ahead.
What an eventual, I was chair when Uri happened, and Line Tech did a fantastic job for us, basically helping our teams, and we were able to, what about an emergency? If we don't go with this route now, and we start looking at through workshop, we start saying, hey, let's analyze the pros versus the cons of essentially farming this out versus hiring and additional crews. What about in the interim for an emergency? Do we have that?
We have the mutual aid assistance programs, so we can request.
We are covered there in the case if we have another, I mean, a hurricane or anything.
As long as there's mutual aid.
Dude, my discussion with Ms. Gilbert was, this is a complicated issue. It took a long time for it to get to this level. It's gonna take some time to get PUB staffed up again, perhaps partner up with TSC or TSDC develop a program and maybe within 3 years, move us out of this.
I agree. I think we absolutely need to try to get to that because when it was explained to me after Uri, I understood it was an emergency situation. But I remember being told by staff at the time, and of course, different staff, but this is not going to be something that, and I expressly said, I want this to be a long-term solution and this, heads us down that path and that can't be the long-term solution. I agree.
I'm open to that option. Like you stated accurately and honestly, that's going to be a fixed item. This is a lot of money coming out of PUB.
And leaving here.
I think we have the smart people here. I think we can collaborate with our college, with TSTC if necessary in Harlingen. We need to grow these crews. But we certainly don't want to expose the PUB to not having sufficient reserves or backup people in case we have a storm. So I leave that up to administration and to y'all's experience. But I think Mike's made some comments. Y'all are working on a plan to maybe separate us from this in maybe 2 years.
Is this time sensitive? Do you need this approved today?
Yeah, this contract.
We do have another item that follows this one, because we're asking for an amendment for 2 additional months to. On the current. We should be okay if we come back next month.
But Patricia, that's the other issue I had is bringing these items up when they're about to expire.
Yeah.
We need to be 6 months ahead of this thing.
And not to get us ahead of this next item, we may want to extend that in 2 months. I know it's the next item, but we are heading into hurricanes. We're already there.
I have one question about these crews. Is this one crew that, basically we hang out with all year? Or is this, the equivalent of one crew when we get, for a year, when we got 30 people showing up during that?
It's 2 crews dedicated for people, one overhead and one underground. And in this case, we were recommending having both of the companies, one for overhead and one for underground, because of the prices they are providing us. In spring, winter storm, the severe storms, we were able to get an additional crew from Tech that they were not busy. Some of those can help us. So it is the option that they have hourly rates for special storm rates. So we can ask them for that further and see if they're not busy with their company, they can get over here.
Okay.
Anything else on this item? Now, do we want to modify this, this motion?
I do have a question, maybe purchasing. Would that be still valid if we go back to another month?
There was a question, but I don't know.
Oh,
if it
what was that? But no, if we decide to delay this item for next month, we need to make sure that those still valid, those proposals.
Only the price that we waited until next month.
Unless we're ready for a conversation today.
So we don't know what the pricing would be if we table it.
I don't suggest we table it, suggest because we need coverage. We need to be prepared in case of a storm. I just want, listening to Mike, that administration is going to work on a plan to maybe separate ourselves from this contract in the future.
Oh.
But for this motion, we want this motion to stand as
No.
recommended.
No, the recommendation has the 2 vendors. If you want to just select new vendors.
You have 2 vendors, if you want to have them both on under contract or in case we need them.
So I believe this is an as-needed contract. We may still need to hire the crews if available, if we're able to hire them, and we don't have to activate that contract or use it to the extent.
I'm fine with that.
We do have sufficient work, right, to keep them busy for the entire year, and so.
But that's something else.
We can keep them busy and still, it's gonna cost us over $1 million.
On this current contract, we have to come back to the board and request for an additional $1 million because of the
And so what's the option of, hey, halfway through the year, we hire 4 people and we just
Terminate.
stop? Well, we don't terminate the contract, we start calling them for projects, right? So that, yeah, it's up to, it doesn't commit us to actually spending the money.
I think we need to cover it.
You need to know.
We have a motion. Mike, sorry.
So,
We
I'm
got
sorry,
here the,
do you want to proceed with the interviews we have both here on the phone?
I personally don't want to proceed with the interviews. I understand, but it's, I discussed this item at length. I don't know if the mayor or anyone else would like to listen to these interviews. We understand what we're facing. We need to,
we've worked with both, right?
This is a recommendation, work with both.
No, we have worked with both.
Well, access, not access, we tried to get them on this previous event, but available.
Okay.
so who's responsible for supervising their work and their accountability mode?
It's the electrical construction and maintenance department. And engineers assigned for the contract, plus all the firms are, as we assign the jobs, one firm gets the materials and go out to inspections, and also the project engineers.
I'm satisfied with them here. But satisfied that we're going to try to perhaps move in another direction, so. That being said, we do have a recommended action by PUB administration. We have a motion.
I moved, do we have the motion?
I need to read it.
Go ahead, Seth.
Okay. So we did start recommends approval to authorize the general manager and chief executive officer to negotiate and execute an electrical system construction contract with Axis Power LLC and Atlantic Services LLC. The total amount for each contract will not exceed $2 million for the terms of 2 years, with an option to renew 3 additional 1-year periods. The total amount for both contracts in the 2 years will not exceed $4 million.
Okay, that's a motion.
I move to approve.
Motion to approve. We have a second.
I'll second.
Mr. Benavides, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion passes. So this is a continuation of this.
Yes. Do you want to read the subject or just?
Go ahead and read it.
So the 2021 electrical system construction contract between BPUB and Mountain Services expired actually yesterday. So we have stopped the work. We agreed to extend the contract by 2 months to ensure the continuity of services for the negotiation phase for this previous item. So amendment number 2 also includes the amount of $27,573.33 for the work associated with the December 2022 winter storm and the 23 and 29 survey weather events. This will amend the contract amount to $3,207,573.30. So I did include the table there with the breakdown. The recommended action is BPUB staff recommends approval of amendment number 2 of the 2021 electric system construction contract with Atlantic LLC to extend the contract for up to 2 months and for a total amount not to exceed $3,027,573.33. Okay.
Okay. Listening, they've read the recommendation on this item. It's actually just adding $127,000.
Basically, that's what it is. That's the e-bills that we received for.
3 million has already been incurred.
Yeah, that's the premiums of previous.
Motion that's been read by administration. Do we have any action on that motion?
Oh, what do we say?
Action has been read. Motion second.
Yeah. I was gonna say, wait.
Give them a loopy.
I'll move to approve.
Second. Move to approve, second.
We have a motion to approve in the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay. Got the last item?
Yes, we're ready for a close meeting.
Ready to go into closed session? All right, are you gonna make me read everything? Motion to go into closed session.
I'll be for you.
At this time, the agenda on the designated closed meeting will be considered. Approved motion of the closed meeting, this will be placed on hold and the board returns to open meeting. Number one, meeting with the board legal counsel for advice about contemplated impending court and administrative litigation and on matters in which the duty of the attorney under the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct conflict with chapter 551, section 551.071. Item number two, discussion and consultation with board counsel of any pending litigation against Brownsville Public Utility Board, section 551.071. Presentation and possible recommendation of information concerning contract terms and pricing of purchased power generation fuel and their impact upon the fuel purchase, energy and marketing charge and possible discussion, section 551.086. Item four, discussion and possible action on the request for publications for resolicitation for local board council, section 551.074 and section 551.071. Number five, consideration and discussion on the distribution of Finasca Equity Fund, section 551.071. Those are the items for consideration in closed meeting. We have a motion going to close.
So moved.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
Second by Joseph. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yeah. Did you? They could have. That's through, man. It would have been a silence.
No
Yeah.
kidding. Reconsider whether I need it.
A bag like that so I can get my. Okay, we're back live from a closed session. We do not have any action items to present. Consideration possible action on items discussed in closed meeting. We have none. Discussion and or request for future agenda items. Any board member would like to put anything on the agenda for the future? I know Mike's already got some items that we're going to be discussing. Anything else? Joseph, anything else?
I mean, I kind of want to know more about the slide, but I'll go to the museum.
Well, nothing else, we want to make a motion. Oh, before I make a motion to adjourn, I'd like to remind all the fathers and wish them a happy Father's Day. I did a little research. We're number 4 on the list for cards. We're behind Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, but the Father's Day are number 4 on receiving Father's Day card. And there's 72 million cards distributed. So we do want to sincerely wish all the fathers a happy Father's Day. It takes a lot of work, takes a lot of patience, and we hope that you enjoy a great day with your family and with the children. We have a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion adjourned. And I didn't get a card.